Hey, this is the Student Ministry Conversations podcast with your hosts, Brent Aiken and Russell Martin. We're glad that you're joining us today, and we hope that you find this conversation helpful, insightful, and encouraging as you lead your students in ministry. We wanted to stop and take a moment to remind you that you can find us on social media at Talk Student Men on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We also have a website that is studentministryconversations.org. And then we also are on the Clubhouse app where we host rooms under the Student Ministry Convos Club. And we host different rooms on Monday afternoons and Thursday mornings that we'd love for you to connect with us and join us for those. Today, we are going to hear an interview with Kate Garnes, and she is going to share a little bit about speaking to students. And so, Russell, this was your conversation. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, it was a great conversation with Kate. She has spent time at Disney, and she has spent time doing student motivational speaking. And she is an author and just an all-around joyful, exciting person. This was one of my favorite interviews, and I hope that you are encouraged by this as much as I was.
Awesome. And so without any more delay, here's Russell's conversation with Kate Garnes.
So here's my first question, and I didn't think this was going to be a hard question for people, but so you do TikTok, don't you?
I do.
All right. So you've seen the tell me you're a blank without telling me you're a blank.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So I'm using it for you though. So tell me who you are without using your name or what you do. Who is Kate Garnes?
Oh, can I talk about myself in like...
You can talk about yourself in third person.
Okay. She is a girl just trying to leave this world a little bit brighter than when she came into it. She is a hustler. She is overabundantly hardworking. She is kind to the center of her soul. She is kind to everyone she meets. She looks for the best in people. She, I can't say what I do. She has a big heart for teenagers. She thinks being a teen in this world is really hard right now. So she does what she can to help teenagers, inspire them to be the best versions of themselves. She is a Christian. But she loves the Lord, but she loves people no matter what they believe.
I can tell you that like all those things I have picked up just from listening to rooms that you were in on Clubhouse.
Oh, good. Oh, good. That's a really big compliment. Thank you. Thank you.
But the quote you said about being in a cave or a tunnel, can you say that again?
Yeah. This past year has been so hard, just so mentally draining for so many people. And, normally when we face a trauma in our lives, there's an end date. I just have to get through the divorce. I just have to make it to the surgery. I just have to make it to Friday. I've just got to make it past tax season, whatever it is. I have to make it through the breakup. There's an end date. But with this unprecedented cluster that has hit our world, not just our country, our world, there hasn't been an end date. And so it has felt like we are walking just into and through darkness, that we can't see the light. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but we can't see it because the tunnel is doing loop-de-loos and flips, and then it goes back on itself, and then you realize you've walked in circle for 3 days, and then you keep moving. So it feels like we're walking into a cave because in a cave, while sometimes it may be a tunnel, when you think of a cave, it's enclosed and there's only one in and one out. If you think like a bear cave. But this isn't a cave. It's a tunnel. We just can't see the end. And it's hard. It is hard to keep walking through the tunnel when you can't see the end. And it's dark and it's scary and it's heavy and it's wet and it's sad. And And it can be really easy to just say, I can't keep going. I'm just going to sit in the tunnel and I can't keep going. But if you stop in the middle of the tunnel, your eyes will adjust to the darkness and you will accept that as the greatest that there is. And it isn't the greatest there is. We have to keep moving. And some days you may run and some days you may crawl, but you have to keep moving forward because there is an end to this. I have to believe there is an end to this, and we will come out on the other side with the strength that we didn't know we had when we entered the tunnel.
So I've heard a little bit about your story, a little bit, but can you share with just everybody kind of what, as much as you want, as 10,000 foot view or in the weeds as you want, how did you get to where you are?
Sure. So I was an only child born and raised in Missouri to a single mama. My parents divorced when I was born, and my dad was a severe alcoholic. So I grew up with very little money and believing things that were told to me that weren't truths. Whether it was that I was too much, that I was a disappointment, that I was an embarrassment. And I believed those lies. I believed it because it was coming from someone and people, being a couple dance teachers that I had, that I was supposed to trust, that I was supposed to listen to. That's what you're always told: listen to your parents. So, growing up, I was always small compared to everyone else. But I had a light that a lot of people didn't understand. I found joy in very, very small things. I would get really, really excited about very minute, like, oh my gosh, like a ladybug. I just think or like a butterfly or a really cool pine cone. Things like that just brought me more joy than than most people would. I grew up, did competitive show choir all through high school, but I still believed that lie that I could stand up, but I couldn't stand out. I needed to fit in. And in the Midwest, unfortunately, I was raised, and it didn't come from my mom so much, but I was raised with the mentality of you go to high school, you go to college, you get married, you have 2 babies, and you either become a middle school art teacher or a nurse. That's what you do. And I didn't do any of those things. I ended up graduating from high school and I went to college in Kansas. Thought I was going to college to meet my husband. That didn't happen, thank goodness. And got a degree in music education. At the end of my degree, I was like, I hate this. And no one tells you what to do in that situation. No one they make it sound they make it sound like, oh, you're going to go to college, you're going to have it all figured out, you're going to graduate, you're going to get a job, and you're going to be so happy the rest of your life. No one prepares you for what you do when you realize, when you realize you don't know what you want to do, even after you've gotten the degree. And this is when the Lord stepped in for me, when God stepped in for me, and I found out about the Disney College program. So I auditioned and I ended up getting in. And so I moved down to Walt Disney World down in Orlando and was a performer. I was only supposed to be there 3 months. 10 years later, I was college program and then I was full-time. And I did some of the coolest things with the Disney company. My 10 years with the Disney company was really a dream come true. It was a dream I didn't even know I had. I never thought I would be talented enough or smart enough or pretty enough to get that job. But I did, and I did mostly shows and parades. I did do meet and greets as well, though. I did live filmings. I did commercial shoots. I mean, I did almost everything that I could do with the company. I loved my job. But about 6 years into it, I felt very lost. I felt very, very sad because working for Disney is a beautiful company. They do amazing things, but it still is a multi-billion-dollar company. And at the end of the day, as much as they want to love on their cast members and their workers, the bottom line is the bottom line, and that they are in it to make money. And sometimes that comes at the cost of their cast, of their workers. And I just felt myself getting very burnt out, getting very negative. I'm not a negative person. I have my moments, but I'm not a negative person. And I found myself just being very negative, very hateful toward myself and toward others. And I stepped back one day and I said, this is not it. This is not who I am. This is not who I want to be. And so I decided, after praying about it, to go part-time. And that was a great decision for me. That was, my heart finally felt like I could breathe again. And in the fall of 2016, I went to my 10-year high school reunion. I had just gotten out of a 4-year relationship. And I was very, very broken. And I was very sad. And I was very weak. And I went to my 10-year high school reunion. And of course, at this point, I'm 28. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I feel like I am the only one who is not married without kids. And a girlfriend walked up to me, my friend Lacey from high school. She walked up to me and said, she had been going through some really tough times in her own life, getting divorced from an abusive husband. And she looked at me and she said, Kate, life doesn't always look the way we think it's going to look. What do you want your life to look like? And in that moment, the only way I can describe it is God meeting me where I was and saying, here you go. This is what you've been waiting for. This is why I've taken you through everything I've taken you through. This right here, this moment. And I said, I want to be a motivational speaker. And I had never said it out loud before. I'd never said it out loud before. And when I tell you that my mind, I mean, that was a game-changing 3 seconds of my life, because my mind went from cloudy and confused and jumbled to, when you get in your car sometimes and it's really foggy and then you turn on the defogger thing and it goes and it's like crystal pinpoint clear. That is literally what happened in my mind in that moment after saying those words. And I sat there and I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm meant to do. And do I understand that hearing this story right now sounds bonkers? Like it sounds crazy. Yup. Even saying this story back, I'm like, man, did that really happen? Yeah, that really happened. I lived it. So I got on an airplane back from Missouri to go back to Orlando. And I wrote a letter on my phone, on my little note section. And I sent it to 8 people that I viewed had achieved success, mostly in the entertainment world, because that's where I'm really connected. And I said, this is what I'm meant to do. I know without a shadow of a doubt, I'm contacting you because you view what I find as success. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know what I don't know. I know 0 motivational speakers. I couldn't even name you a motivational speaker. And of the 8, I think 4 or 5 responded. I sent it via email, via Facebook Messenger, and they said, just immerse yourself. Like, I don't know how to tell you to get to be a motivational speaker, but immerse yourself, get as much information as you can. So I started reading books. I started listening to podcasts, just focusing as hard as I could, hustling as hard as I could, praying as hard as I could. That was in September of 16, led me to my coach. And by the grace of God, listen, God is the only way that this makes any sense, because I did my first paid speaking gig in February of 18. In the fall of 17, I did a totally free workshop. I had been going into a high school here in Orlando. The leadership teacher was letting me come in and do my talk for her students in her leadership class, like super. She ended up having me do a workshop for a district conference for a multi-state district conference, just a workshop at this conference. I didn't realize that word got back to the national conference about my talk. And my third paid gig was a national conference, which I then booked like 10 or 13 state conferences from. And yeah, so my career took off. 2019 was one of the best years of my life. 2020 was set up to just skyrocket my career. And then the world shut down. Quite literally. My entire, not only my career, my entire life came to a grinding halt. And for someone who is a hustler and works really, really hard to stay busy all the time, this has been like the kiss of death. This has been so hard. And I've had to adjust, and I've cried a lot, and I've prayed and felt like no one was hearing me a lot, and I've slept a lot. And I just have to trust that God gave me this vision on purpose. God gave me this dream on purpose. He didn't give me this dream to give me my dream life, to have it all taken away in a year. So now I'm kind of just waiting. I'm in a period of waiting for the world to open back up, for speakers to come back, for them to want us to come back in schools. And I am working on my second book. I'm just about to launch a course, an online course for advisors to do with their students, which that has been a trip in itself. But yeah, so that's my story. I'm now 33, still not married. I have a cat that I managed to keep alive. I don't know how, but and I just keep living. So that's my story.
That's awesome. So you have two books. What are your books?
I have two books. One of my books, well, one of them is still being written, but my first book is called Mixtape: How to Stop Listening to the Recordings of Your Past. I wrote it in 2019, and it is all about, it's my story. It's all about somebody makes one comment to you one time. Somebody calls you fat. Someone calls you stupid. Someone calls you ugly. Someone calls you an embarrassment. Someone calls you a disappointment. And that becomes your truth. That becomes the lie you listen to. That becomes your recording. And so Mixtape is all about, every chapter is a different recording that I have had in my life. And it ranges from, let's see. Everyone else has it figured out. I have to fit in. I don't belong here. I'm not worth showing up for. I need you to like me. I am too much. There's just, but then it has a shift toward like chapter 11. And then it changes to the recordings that I have now, that are recordings that I keep, that say, I am worth forgiving. I have a story worth hearing. I can speak up. Your opinion is none of my business. So, and at the end of every chapter, there's questions that people can kind of walk themselves through their own mixtape. So that's that. And it's available on Amazon. And my second book, God has a really great sense of humor. It's kind of just like, he made platypuses, so he's got a really great sense of humor. But in September of 2020, God put on my heart, you're going to write a book about joy. And I said, oh, let's go. Let's do it. I love joy. I'm so joyful. And within a week of him laying that on my heart, I found out that I was being laid off from my 10-year job with Disney. The gym that I was working at closed. A bunch of my friends got sick from COVID. Just so bad. Everything happened at once. And I felt God go, oh, did I not mention? Did I not mention that you're going to write this book about joy from the lowest place you've ever been in your life? Did I leave that part out? So the book I'm writing right now, the first title was called Joy Thief. And it was all about protecting your joy in a world that wants to steal it, in comparison, and in you name it that steals your joy. I probably write about it. So But that working title has shifted. It's still a work in progress, but the title has shifted to Slaying Dragons, How to Protect Your Joy in a World Full of Thieves. So yeah, that's my second book. I'm about halfway through it now. So
Well, I have not read either of those, but well, obviously I couldn't read the second one, but I'm definitely interested in getting that first. 'Cause I think that'd be good for a youth study, youth group to go through
yes,
and things
absolutely.
and to go through those things. So I mean, you've had a lot of things happen in the last year. What have you learned? What are the big lessons from
Oh, that's a great
2020?
question. Always have an emergency bank account. But just kidding. Well, I'm not kidding, but you don't know what the future is going to hold. You can have everything planned out, and in a minute, everything can be taken away. But plan it anyway. Plan anyway. Live your life anyway. Don't sit and live in fear that something that you love or desire may be taken away. Don't let that fear steal your joy. Don't let that fear steal your dreams, because anything worth having is hard. Whatever dream, whoever's listening to this, whatever dream that you have on your heart right now, it won't be easy to get, but it's worth the hard work. Another big thing I've learned is that rest is essential. Rest is so important for your body. And when you are going through a trauma, which our world has collectively gone through in the last 13 months or 12 months, you need to listen to your heart. You need to listen to your body and do what it's asking of you. If it needs you to sleep, you need to sleep. If you need to drink more water, drink more water. If you need to go on a walk, go on a walk. When all of this kind of came to a head, I spiraled quickly because all of us speakers and anyone in the live event realm, which was 100% my jobs, all of the jobs I had involved large groups of people. I spiraled because I literally watched every source of income and every source of joy vanish. And I saw myself starting to get very hard on myself, well, you're being lazy because you're not trying to find a job, but there are no jobs. And I made a decision. I specifically remember making this decision. I said, if no one else is going to be kind to me, I am going to be kind to myself. So I became laser focused on, I do not speak hatred to myself. I do not speak negatively to myself. And when I have those thoughts come up, there was one day I was about to get in the shower and I turned and looked in the mirror and my knee-jerk reaction was, ugh. And literally half a second later, out loud, I said, oh, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. We don't talk about our body that way. We will never put the word ugh and my body in the same sentence. And I forced myself. I stood in front of that mirror and I complimented every single part of my body out loud. Because I know I have to show up for myself. And I was created with intention. I was created the way I am on purpose. I don't get the right to speak poorly about that or to degrade that. So I have been so laser focused on being very, very, very kind to myself.
My goal in starting this was that there were, I love the big name youth leaders who write books and do stuff, and I learn a lot from them. Mm-hmm. But also there's a lot of times that you're having a conversation with somebody and you're sitting and talking and you get ideas and then you say, hey, how did you do this game? Or what'd you do this or whatever? Mm-hmm. And so it's everyday conversations. And so my goal is to equip, encourage, and empower youth leaders who do this all the time and to pull those stories. And so I know that's not your, youth ministry is not your, you're not a user at a church, but I know that you had just listening to your stories and listening to your enthusiasm and all that. I knew there was a lot that youth leaders could glean off of what you do. So I had some specific questions, but I was trying to go general. What would you tell youth leaders? Like, what do we need to hear? What do we need to know?
Listen to the youth that you're leading. Listen to them. Yeah, we as adults, and I'm guilty of this too, we like to think, well, I've been through it, so I know better than you, which is true to a certain extent. But even I'm 33 and I am so disconnected from what it's like to be a teenager now. And I'm very upfront when I speak to teens about that. I'm very upfront about it. And I almost like poke a little bit of fun at myself to show them like, I'm meeting you in the middle here. Listen to your teens, listen to your middle schoolers. They will tell you what they need. They will tell you what's on their heart. And if you are met, no matter what they tell you, meet them with love. Meet them with love, no matter their skin color, no matter if they're doubting the church and they're just trying to seek answers, no matter who they love. Meet them with love, meet them with kindness, because you just don't know if that could be the conversation that turns them away from the church or turns them away from God, or that shows them the love of Jesus, that shows them the love of the Lord, because he's so clear. Love me, love others. Love me, love others. And yeah, there's so many other things that go into that, but I know so many of our youth, and even non-youth, I can remember, so I was born and raised Catholic. And my relationship, while there are still things that I love about the Catholic Church, my relationship with, like, my real relationship with Jesus started in college. But I can remember going, it was during Lent, and a bunch of my sorority sisters and I went to the Catholic Church in town, because every Wednesday during Lent, they were doing a session about one of the sacraments. And I had just never felt welcome in these churches, these Catholic churches in Kansas, and I was struggling. And so everybody left. Well, okay, back up. So we were talking in this group, and there were many, many, many people there. And the priest started making fun of the type of Catholic church that I came from, which was very, very contemporary. We played all contemporary music. It was very teen and youth driven. A lot of people would say, wow, this seems like a Christian church that just happens to be Catholic. So, and the priest started making fun of it, making fun of people who raised their hands in prayer, making just a lot. And I thought everybody had left the chapel, and I just started crying and yelling in my head at God, like, I have been faithful to you. Why are you making it so hard for me to find a church that I feel like I belong, that I feel like I'm a part of? Well, I didn't know that the priest was still there. And so he walks up, and instead of meeting me in a loving, hey, you're not alone, like, do you want to talk about it? Are you okay? I was met with, okay, why don't you tell me what's going on? And I just said, I've attended your church for a month and no one has said hello to me. To which I was met with, well, we Catholics are reserved people. You're not supposed to curse at a priest. You're really not supposed to curse in a church. And I won't say it now. I'm going to censor myself now, but I said, that's bullcrap. That's not what I said that day. And I wonder, had I been met with love and with empathy in that moment with what I was struggling with, would that have changed my journey with the actual, like, Catholic religion? So I want to encourage any youth leader, also be honest with your teens, be vulnerable and be honest about not your struggles, but like, you don't have to be happy-go-lucky all the time. They need to know that you struggle too, and that you have your own demons, and that there are things that you also battle, to make them feel like they're not alone in this, that they aren't the only broken or bent ones. So yeah, listen to your teens, and whatever they say, meet them with kindness and empathy would be my biggest piece of advice.
It seems, and I've been in some conversations talking about deconstruction and of faith and such. And I've had this question for 4 podcasts and I haven't asked it yet. It's on the deal.
Ooh.
So yeah, you get that. What does the church get wrong?
There's so much hatred. There's so much judgment. Have you watched the show The Chosen yet?
I've started watching it. I haven't seen I've got 3 episodes into.
I'm obsessed with it. And I actually write a chapter about this in my book. I like to believe that the Jesus that I follow would laugh at knock-knock jokes. And what I mean by that is we get so caught up in the super nitty-gritty. And I know that I'm probably going to make a bunch of people irritated by saying this. Yeah. What does the church get wrong? We get so focused on, but the Bible technically says this, and so we are supposed to hate these people. Or, but the Bible technically says this, and so I can't hang out with you because of that. Or my Bible says this, and so my mom says I can't play with you on the playground anymore because you prayed to this and not that. And yeah, in some places in the Bible, it does say things that can be interpreted that way, 100%. But I also see a freedom and a love of a Savior that makes it very clear. Your first commandment is to love me with all of your heart. Your second commandment is to love others as you love yourself. We as a people, I don't think people are inherently born evil. I don't think people are inherently born with hatred. I don't think people are born to judge. People are kind of born colorblind, like they don't know. And those things are taught, and hurt people hurt people. The people who are going and shooting up schools or are bombing places or no, I'm not going to say that. Making choices have been hurt somewhere. Have been hurt. I was in a Clubhouse room last night, and it was I know you've been in this room before. It was a room about how do I forgive God, or how do I fix my relationship with God? And it got the shootings that have happened recently, the one in Colorado and the Asian targeting shootings that have happened. And one girl said, while I am so sad, I'm also just so confused. And I want to ask the person who did it, who hurt you? Who hurt you? Who broke you so hard that you thought this was the only answer? And I think a lot of, not all, obviously, but I think some of that hatred is taught in a church. Some of that hatred is, and some of that hatred is taught. We forget. We get so, as a church, we get so laser focused on pointing out others' mistakes and judgment that we forget you can't judge and love at the same time. You can't hate and feel empathy and sit with the sinners and sit with the prostitutes and have dinner with the tax collectors and heal the leper. You can't do that and have hatred in your heart and be judging at the same time. We don't. So this is something I've thought a lot about, because I don't know. I don't have all the answers. Obviously, I barely keep my cat alive, but I don't have all the answers. But what I know is I can be kind, and I can love anyone who comes onto my path. And Jesus said, turn the other cheek. He didn't say stand there and let them beat the crap out of you. So if someone doesn't meet me with kindness or meet me with respect, I can still love them, but I also reserve the right to walk away because I also know my worth. So yeah, I think that would probably be my answer to that.
And the follow-up for that is, what does that tell what do students hear when they see this, when they see the church?
I'm not welcome there. I am going to be judged if I go there. It's really, really, really unfortunate that it's really unfortunate that the Christian faith, I feel like, does get a bad rep because of how the media portrays it. And we have these people in power who claim to be Christian, who claim to love the Lord. And then they use derogatory terms towards women. And then they make fun of mentally or special needs people. And so we see this and we think, oh, if that, it's like they can't separate, but that's a Christian. And if that's a Christian, then I can't tell you how many times working at Disney, I would take my Bible with me. I would read my Bible sometimes, just because. And people would say, oh, you're a Christian, so you must hate me because I'm gay. And I was like, no. I'm a brunette. Do you hate me because I'm a brunette? Like, this is my natural hair. So, and getting to break down those barriers. So I think teens are hearing, and students are hearing, if I go there, my sins, whatever they are unforgivable, and I will be judged. And I don't want to be judged, so I'm just not going to go. And I'm not going to partake in that. I would rather, this world is already so judgmental. I don't want to be judged by a higher power right now too. Like, I don't want to be condemned by a higher power too. So that's kind of what I would hear.
I mean, for me, it's pretty clear, whether it's your friends or your enemies, Jesus says love. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that kind of covers everybody I could think of.
Yeah. Yep.
Within the whole deal. So,
yeah.
Well, wow. I mean, that's awesome. Thank you for going there and getting deep and real with that. And so I do want to kind of pop out and go a little bit something different. So tell me about your podcasts. You have two of them?
I do. I have two podcasts. One of them is geared toward leadership advisors. So it is geared toward any teacher or administrator, anyone in a middle school or a high school that works with teen leadership. So I've had everybody from, I've had executive directors of state conventions. I have had first year teachers. I've had high school seniors. I've had principals and student counselors. I've had you name it. I've probably had it on the podcast. And we just talk about tips and tricks that can help advisors work with teens, and just giving them a completely free, that was a big thing for me, is I wanted a completely free resource for advisors to get ideas or to feel like they aren't alone, because I know teachers have been going through it this year. So that's the first one, the Leadership Advisor podcast. It's available on all podcast platforms. And the second one is called the Give Yourself Room podcast. And it is, the only goal of it is to give yourself the room you need to be exactly who you are, because who you are is already enough. And that was born from, I found myself during the pandemic saying over and over, it's okay to give yourself room to cry. It's okay to give yourself room to be joyful. You can be sad and joyful at the same time. You have enough room for that. And so I was like, oh man. And I thought that was going to be my next book. I thought my second book, was going to be called Give Yourself Room. But God said, nope, other plans. So yeah. And I interview anybody who has a story, anybody who had to give themselves room in their life to be who they were and what that looks like. So.
And I've heard a couple of those episodes, and they're great.
Thank you.
And love what you're doing. That, like I said, I listened to the breathing one while I was driving, so I couldn't actually do any of the breathing because I figured that might be dangerous.
Benedict Beaumont, he's amazing.
But that was awesome to listen to. So we're jumping around. We're doing random things.
I love
it. So what did you learn at Disney that would be applicable to youth ministry?
What did I learn at Disney that could be applicable to youth ministry? Okay, couple things. Everybody has a story. Everyone has baggage that you don't know about. And the words that you use matter. The words, whether it's a guest speaking to Cinderella, whether it's a manager speaking backstage of a show, whether it is a performer to another performer, when you comment on their body in a negative way, when you make fun of what they're eating, when you think that you're giving them a compliment, but it is actually a backhanded criticism, your words matter. And you would think I wouldn't have to say that, but many times my managers, like the people above me, made very hurtful comments, whether it was about my body, whether it was about my choices, very, very hurtful comments. So your words matter. That's one. That's a really good, I've never been asked that question before. That's a really, really good question. There is magic in all of us. I will say that there is a magic in all of us. And everybody has a dream, whether it's to work at Disney, whether it's to be a doctor, whether it's to cure cancer. Everyone has a dream. And I believe that those dreams were given to us I'm living a dream that was given to me from a higher power. So encourage your teens to go after what they dream of, and let them know it's okay to change their mind. Let them know it's okay to change their mind. We talked about that a little bit earlier, that you can change your mind. So yeah, Disney, it's such a good company. It does have a darker underside just because it is a multi-billion-dollar business. Any multi-billion-dollar business will have that. And I would tell a big piece of advice that I would tell anyone looking to go into professional performing, professional entertainment of any kind. The piece of advice I would give is know who you are. Know your morals. Know your I will not cross this boundary. Because, and maybe this is something that youth ministers could talk about with their teens as they go into college, into the world. Not everyone is a believer, and not everyone has your best intentions at heart, period. And people will try to push you. They will try to convince you that you're wrong. They will try to convince you that you don't know who you are, or that you aren't secure in who you are. And they will mask it in, this is going to help you. So be very confident and sure in who you are before you go into professional entertainment. That would be that's a big one.
I don't know if that's just professional entertainment. I mean, like you said, going off to college, going into church. I mean, anything that's huge to know who you are and whose you are.
Yes.
And where your identity is actually found, before people try to tell you what that is. So
absolutely.
I need to scream that to my 10-year-old now, coming up there. Question is if I were going to have you come to talk to my seniors who are graduating, and you only had 2 minutes or 3 minutes to do it, what would you tell them?
Okay, well, if we're talking seniors 2021,
seniors 2021,
I would say your worth is not canceled. Your worth is not canceled. Your high school career has not been canceled. Leadership has not been canceled. Your value and who you are has not been canceled. I know that it feels like so much has been taken from you in this year. You have been given a very powerful story of you walked through something really, really hard and you made it to the other side. How are you going to let that shape who you become? How are you going to let the resilience that you learned, the mental health tactics that you learned, the self-care that you learned, the love that you found for yourself or your family, or maybe you've had the opposite. Maybe you found yourself in a darker place than you've ever expected. How are you going to use that to become the person that you want to be? How are you going to use this to work for you instead of to you? Because you have a story and your story needs to be heard. That is what I would say.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a thorough joy. I look forward to catching more rooms with you on Clubhouse and wish you the best.
Thank you so much, my friend.
You're welcome. Take care, and I'll see you in some of those rooms.
Sounds good. I'll talk to you soon.
Let's do it again. Thanks.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Man, that was such a great episode. Hey, thanks everyone for joining us today. We hope that you are encouraged and inspired by this week's episode and that you found tools that you can use as you pour into the lives of your students.
If you enjoyed this episode and you found it helpful, we would ask that you leave a comment or a rating on whatever platform you're listening. We'd also appreciate maybe you letting someone know about this episode, someone who would benefit from this conversation. Just take a moment and share it on social media and tag them, and then also tag us, Talk Student Men, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So Brent, you have next week's episode. Can you tell us a little bit about what's coming up next week?
Yeah, so next week I had the privilege of talking to one of my best friends. His name is Stephen Gehring, and he is the student pastor at First Baptist Church in Graham, Texas. And so Stephen has been in student ministry for a little over 10 years now, but he also just finished his Master's of Arts in Biblical Counseling from Dallas Theological Seminary. And so we basically just spend close to an hour talking about the importance and the need for pastoral care. We talked about how, especially after this last year of COVID and everything else, we talked about the importance of needing to recharge and refill your own batteries and make sure that you're spiritually healthy in order for you to be able to minister to the students that you've been entrusted with. And so it was a super, super good conversation. He had tons of resources and just tons of opportunities. And then also he gave information on how you can contact him because he does provide counseling sessions. And he does provide opportunities to where you can speak with him one-on-one and talk through ministry and talk through what's going on where you need someone to talk to. So here's a clip from next week's conversation. Check it out real quick.
And I know that, in ministry, and especially when I started out in ministry, I felt like I couldn't say no. I felt like I had to always say yes, or I had to always take everybody's advice, or I had to be at every single thing. And man, that is exhausting. That is exhausting to feel like you can't say no. And so having healthy boundaries, like saying no, makes your yeses better.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to that, and I want to encourage you. As Brent said, we do have a website, studentministryconversations.org, and you can get all those notes and links, the things that Stephen shared will be shared in the show notes as we do with all of our episodes. Just search for this week's episode in the search bar, and there will be also other helpful articles and posts as well. As a reminder, too, if you happen to be on the Clubhouse app, we look forward to talking to you in person with our Student Ministry Convos Club on Monday afternoon and Thursday morning. Again, we thank you for joining us this week, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
See you guys next week.